We're making a super easy apron. How do you do it? Well, with my Frocks and Frolics pattern, of course, and then you need an upper layer and a lower layer and a facing for the pocket, 2 ties, waistband, and just to make it look super cute, a ribbon for the waistband. I used my Happily Ever After, some bias binding, and you're ready to go. First thing is put your pocket facing underneath the top layer and put a few pins in, and then we're going to do something really cool. We're going to put our binding on the inside first. That's really important, so we're always stitching from the outside, which is of course the side you see, and that makes life so much easier. So pin it in. If your bias binding is really wide like mine, I'm actually taking a centimeter seam allowance, or you can do foot width, it depends. But if you have fairly slim bias binding, then please sew in the fold that is already pre-ironed for you. That makes life very easy. Then you just fold it over to the outside, just so you're covering up that visible stitch line that you've already got, and you sew it down. It's actually really easy to do, there's nothing to it. And then you need to press that really well before you go on to the next step. Now the next step is quite a good trick. You want to just place your top layer onto the lower layer, and what we're going to do now is just flip up the upper layer and then pin the pocket to the lower layer. When you do binding, there's no need to have another pattern piece, which normally comes with a pocket, to face the pocket, and then you have another piece underneath it. You don't need to do that, which is really great. So you just pin it. The last pins put in from the top because it's easier to get in there. But you will find that it's quite easy to sew this on the sewing machine, which is the next step we're going to do. The pockets also can't rattle around in there, they're sitting really well. And then you secure your threads at the end and the pockets are in already. Is that cool or what? Now I'm just trimming off the edges just to make sure that when I put my bias binding all the way around, I don't have to do any trimming while I'm sewing. And you do the same thing again. You start on the inside, you pin one pin in, and actually try doing this without pinning because you have more control over your bias binding actually. And the only slightly difficult bit is when you go around the corner, you need to move up the presser foot there so that you don't catch it and have little pleats, but it's not that hard. That's the only bit that you have to watch out. And you go all the way around, and then again you take your bias binding and you fold it to the front, and you go fairly close to the edge again, so 1 or 2 millimeters off, just right on there, and you go all the way around, giving you this really fantastic effect which looks lovely. So now we want to do the waistband. I'm going to put a ribbon on that's about 4 centimeters up from the lower edge that you can see there, which brings it right central for the waistband. If you wanted to do a loop, you could make it a little bit longer on one side, leave it hanging over, and then tuck it in as a loop. Now we're going to close the side seam on both sides, and we're going to sew that with a centimeter seam allowance, iron them apart. And now we're already doing the ties, but when you sew the ties shut, right sides facing, make sure you stop about 3 centimeters away from your waistband seam so it's easier to go in. And I've done that on this side already, as you can see. Cut back your seam allowances, and then you turn it inside out. You can use a spoon or something, or pen for that. And once you've done that, you want to just get out all the little corners there. We've got the tip of your tie. And now we're going to sew this on, and we're using the same trick again, you know. We're going to go on the inside. So we work from the inside to the outside. We pin that on from side to side, and the seam should sit on your bias binding. Put a few pins in, sew it across, and it's done. And once you've sewn that, you just need to press it up really well so it's nice and flat. and then you turn in the top layer 1 centimeter, and again you go just over your stitching line that is visible. And now we're going to sew all the way around this, and I would suggest you start on the ties, not the top layer, because you might see that it might be obvious. If you start anywhere on the tie, it'll be brilliant. And you're already done, and that can take you as little as about 45 minutes to make one of those. So let's get going for all those bazaars and school fates. This is a brilliant project for it. So order your pattern from Etsy.com. The link is underneath this video and you can get going straight away. And there you have the apron, all lovely and finished. Happily ever after country apron. You can tie it in the front, which is really nice, like I'm doing here. And I've actually worn this thing all weekend after I've made it. Loved it. It's a great one. So have fun sewing your own. And I see you next time.